Bachman's Basement is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to Bachman's Basement, the place where we crack open the forgotten corners of Stephen King's mind, or the names he hid behind when the anger was still close to the surface. Down here, we don't just read stories, we sit with them. We let them linger. We let them show us what's left after the noise dies down. Over the last few episodes, we've talked about fear in motion, storms rolling in, kids walking forward because standing still wasn't an option, panic shared, survival communal. Tonight is different. There are no storms, no journeys, no one coming to help. This is a quieter kind of horror, the kind that arrives on letterhead, the kind that tells you everything is already decided and asks you to be reasonable about it. Richard Bachman's Roadwork isn't about what breaks a man. It's about what keeps pressing long after the break should have already happened. I'm Chris Patton, your host, and as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Christopher Clawson. Chris, how are you doing? How have you been? What you been watching? What you been up to?
I'm doing really good. I've been watching a lot of things, actually. So Xander and Cassie and I went and saw the 28 Years Later sequel, The Bone Temple, on, I guess it was yesterday. Yeah, I think we saw that yesterday evening, and that was an exceptional movie. I want to encourage our listeners to see it. Obviously, if you haven't seen 28 Years Later, watch that one first, as this is a direct sequel. It's really almost just like more, it's the way that the first one ends. It's just this is a continuation of the story. Picks up right where the last one left off, and it leaves off without saying anything about it, the story itself. It leaves off where you know that there's another one coming. It's meant to be a 3-part story. So fantastic, extremely gory. It's a zombie movie, so I've enjoyed it very much. So that was fun. And then I had been meaning to get around to watching the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon flick on Netflix. So I watched that one, The Rip. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was, it's one of those made for television sort of, Hollywood productions that, although the production value is pretty good and the acting's good, script's mediocre, but enjoyable enough. So I'm glad I watched it. And then last but not least, and probably my favorite overall that I've watched, is this 4-part miniseries, Adolescence. And I highly recommend that to anyone. It's tough subject matter, though, so just be aware of that. Dealing with a kid, 13 years old, in the UK, who's arrested on suspicion of murder of another 13-year-old. And there's 4 episodes. Each episode is a single shot, and they're 45 minutes. It's amazing how they accomplished it. But the acting's really good. Very natural sort of storytelling. Feels like you're just there with, the camera's just following people, and then you stop for these, these monologues, these conversations, and then it just kind of moves on to to another person who's nearby. It's just beautifully done. So I would recommend that highly.
This feels like something that I watched. Is there a lot of not interrogation scenes, but him talking to, I guess, a child psychiatrist?
Yes.
Okay.
So episode 3 is him, with the psychologist, and I don't want to ruin the story for anyone, so I don't want to talk too much about the details, but generally speaking, it deals with the idea of whether or not he did it, and then you're not certain as the viewer. You can make up your mind about it fairly quickly in the first episode, but you could still kind of kind of still have some reservations about it. And it really addresses kind of the impact on everyone in the community, you know, from law enforcement and their part in it, to the school, all the students and the teachers, the parents, you know, his parents and the girl's parents. And yeah, it's just a really interesting sort of study of humanity and, you know, everyone's sort of part to play in tragedies like this.
Yeah, I remember the camera work being great in that, and that particular episode being really interesting. The conversation between the child psychiatrist and the who is, I mean, I don't even know what to call the character really. Who, the accused, I will say. How about that? That works, right?
Yeah, the young man, Jamie is his name.
Yes. Yeah. And see, it was one that my wife started, so I kind of picked up in the middle of it. I need to go back and watch it because I remember liking it.
It's worth your time from beginning to end. And I mean, it's not crazy long. It's, you know, it's shy of 4 hours, so maybe 3.5 hours total.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I had a friend tell me that they were like about to step into the Bone Temple. I had called them and they were like, "Hey, I'll call you back. I'm about to step into the Bone Temple," and I didn't realize that that was the sub name of that movie. So I was like, I guess they're going into a bar or something. So I had to like Google it real quick, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's like
the movie."
28
It's great
years later.
when you're sitting there watching, it opens and it's like 28 years later, ... on a black screen, and then it cuts to, you know, like kind of the intro. And then you get the title of the movie, which is the Bone Temple. So it is 20 years later, the Bone Temple, but they really are, you know, as a viewer, when you watch it, it stands alone in the title sequence as the Bone Temple.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It threw me off the way the text came off. It's like about to go into the Bone Temple. And I was like, is that a bar? Is that a, it was funny.
Be a good name. Good name for a bar too.
It immediately reminded me of that Sirius station. Was it the Boneyard, the Aerosmith classic rock station?
Right. Or, I mean, there are microbrews. There are beers that have like the Boneyard. Boneyard is a beer.
Oh yeah, Broken Skull IPA. The Boneyard's like Joe Perry's thing, right? The guitar player from Aerosmith, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I remember that being like that. I think that's like he has like a barbecue sauce and hot sauce brand, and I think was involved with that Sirius station. I don't know if he still is at this point. We're going back 20 something years since that thing kicked off, so he may no longer be involved with that. It might not even exist anymore. I don't know. It's been a long time since I had Sirius or XM radio.
The one I'm thinking of is just because, I mean, I live in the Northwest, and Boneyard IPA is locally brewed here in Central Oregon and Bend, Oregon. But anyway, it's popular around where I live. Probably not everywhere.
Yeah, I was pretty boring, man. I didn't really watch a whole lot. I'm still watching Law and Order season 12.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there. One season at a time. We did watch some young. Yeah, we watched. One case at a time. We watched some young Sheldon and just like some more like kind of sitcom-y stuff. We didn't get to dive into anything too serious. I can't remember. Did I talk about Begonia? That is something I watched recently, but I can't remember if I talked about it or not.
I think we've talked about it. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but it's one that I've been meaning to watch as well. And I can't find it yet, so that's why I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it's I think that is on Peacock now. I could be wrong on that, but I ended up paying for it on Prime, rented it on Prime, and it was well worth the rent. It's Jesse Plemons is incredible in it, first and foremost.
I really like him. What was that one he did with Elizabeth Olsen?
The Flower Moon. Was it Blood Flower Moon? I can't remember.
Killers on the Flower Moon. This one is the actress, the sister of the Olsen twins. She plays the Scarlet Witch in the Marvel movies, but this is a it's like I think it was on Apple TV or maybe Hulu, where she ends up murdering this woman, and he plays the husband of the woman who gets murdered, but he was having an affair with her. And anyway, it's based on a true story, really good. Anyway, just a movie that stood out with him in the movie, and I was like, I really like him, and I've seen him in other stuff, obviously, and yeah, he's consistently good.
Like Friday Night Lights, his the show that launched his career.
Right.
Yeah, no. All kidding aside, I don't think I've seen that. The last thing I saw would have been the Killer Blood Moon, or whatever the hell the title of that movie was, which was pretty good.
I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I'm sure I'll look it up, and somebody out there that's
people that know will know.
Yeah.
If you look up Jesse Plemons and Blood Moon, I'm sure it'll come up.
Or Elizabeth Olsen, yeah, like Jesse Plemons, you'll find it. It came out in the last couple of years. It was like a mini series.
Yeah. I know that. I don't think I've seen that. But if it was on Apple TV, that would be why, because I just haven't continuously kept a subscription to that. Every once in a while I'll get like a free trial and I'll watch something. Like the last thing I watched on Apple TV was Severance, which I liked at first and then kind of fell off pretty hard.
That's how I feel. Like I didn't immediately. I watched the first episode of season 2 and I was just like, oh, this isn't grabbing me like season 1 did. So
yeah, it's kind of the same way I felt. So we kind of fell off that. And then the only other thing that I've watched on Apple TV probably in the past year and a half was that Beastie Boys documentary, where they did like the live on stage plus like clips. So it was like a live kind of biography type deal. It was pretty good. That's worth the watch.
Nice.
But yeah, that's that was a while back when I watched that. And then outside of that, as far as video games go, I played Drive Beyond the Horizon, which is kind of it's really a car building. It's like a car building survival game. So you got to have like food and water, and you have to urinate and all the survival game stuff. But the whole thing is like building cars and better cars and just driving. And just endlessly driving, and then kind of investigating places you come across to get better car parts or build better cars. And yeah, it's you can play it like up to, I think like you can play it in a group of like four people, just kind of neat. I didn't do any of that, but if you like kind of laid back survival games, it's worth checking out.
Nice. Yeah. Usual games. I'm still working on Avatar, playing Fortnite, usual stuff. So nothing too much to report on the gaming front. Eventually I'll get done with Avatar, and then I'll get back to Grand Theft Auto 5. Nate's been giving me a hard time. My friend Nate, who listens. So shout out to Nate. But giving me a hard time. He's like, just like, so I see you're not finishing Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yes, it's funny because I've said the same thing. At this point, I just expect you'll never finish it. I've just came to accept it, because we've been talking about you finishing this game almost the entire time I've known you.
Yeah, right. This is ridiculous. I know. And then I put it off because, well, really, it was the watching the Avatar movies with Xander that, like, I'm like, I want more Avatar, so I got into that game, and that, it's always just something, and these longer single player experience games, sometimes that I just jump off of, but I should just finish GTA. But
yeah, I will say the Beyond the Horizon game I was talking about, it's Drive Beyond the Horizon. It's only on PC, so if you're a console, it's not out on console yet. That's like a future thing that'll be happening. So if you want to play it, it's not a very heavy PC. Like, you don't have to have a god build PC to play it or anything, but it is a PC game, just as a heads up to everyone out there, which is kind of cool because there's a ton of mods, and the developers seem to be very in touch with the modding community and adding different cars and new car parts and all of that kind of thing, which is going to make the game, I think, great. Like, it'll have continuous content because it's kind of got some randomly generated stuff, the different places you visit, what you're going to come across and all that. And they're zombies,
That's That's cool. I don't know why, but it made me think. So way back, like 20 years ago, I had a roommate who was a software hardware major, and one of his friends from high school was also into coding, and they were just started building this game, and it started as a text-based game, but it was called Summer Break Game. It was available summerbreakgame.com. I'm sure it's not anymore, but they were developing this for like a year, and it was getting better and better. And eventually they were going to, develop, and it was going to turn into something akin to like a Grand Theft Auto game. But at the point that I was playing it with, this interaction was like, you would go around the city and you would find car parts and you could build different cars. And then you would go to, places to get your health. And it was just like very sort of GTA-esque, but in text-based format.
So this is similar to that in I guess in the sense of what you're kind of doing. It's in post-apocalyptic car build game, finding food, dealing with creatures sometimes. But the creatures are kind of far in between, so far from what I've played of it. I've probably driven like 300 kilometers in the game, which is not a crazy amount, but you kind of want to stop and look at everything you come across. So that's part of the fun, right? So
yeah,
but yeah, it's neat. It's a weird game, but it's kind of neat. It's got some jank to it, being kind of an early access Steam game, so there is some jank. This is a heads up, but it's playing.
Beyond the Horizon is what it's called.
Yeah, Drive Beyond Horizons.
Drive Beyond Horizons. Okay.
And I'm not professional enough to, because this is not the Patton report, which, by the way, check out the Patton report. I don't have the developers' names or anything, but if you look it up on Steam, you'll find it. Also, I believe Neebs Gaming did a video series about it. That's how I came across it. If you're a YouTube fan, check out Neebs Gaming. They do some really fun and interesting survival gameplay with voiceovers and funny stuff.
Okay, sweet.
So to get into Roadwork, a book that is either massively loved or massively hated, apparently.
Well, very famously, it is a Bachman book / Stephen King book that has never been adapted for the screen. So we know that going right into this.
Yeah, I went to like goodreads.com and started looking at like reviews of this book, and there's a lot of people that just either really love it or really hate it. There doesn't seem to be an in-between on this one. It's interesting, and as we get through the story, I'll kind of give some of my thoughts on maybe why that is. But yeah, it's let's go ahead and let's jump into it. Let's just get right in there. So I'm going to set this up for everybody here. There's no dystopia in Roadwork. There's no poison skies or collapsed economy. This is an ordinary world and set in the 70s, one that still functions. Highways are being expanded. Traffic needs relief. The city's growing. On paper, that makes sense, right? Cities are going to grow. Things have to happen. Barton Dawes' house just happens to be in the way of this massive highway expansion. And what makes Roadwork unsettling is how normal everything feels. The meetings are polite. The explanations about what's going on are very calm. Nobody's raising their voices. No one's really acting cruel. The system doesn't really need cruelty as it has this momentum of expansion. Progress isn't really, kicking the door in. It kind of knocks, waits for you to answer, and hands you a piece of paper saying, "Hey, bud, you got to get out of here."
Right. They're offering him compensation. They're not just saying, "Hey, you got to leave and we're knocking your house down." They're like, "We want to relocate you." And he doesn't want that.
Yeah, it's such a weird. So I don't know how deep I want to get into this, but there's also this. I think that a lot of the bad reviews I saw, and this is nothing against the UK, love you guys across the pond here, are from people in the UK where the towns are a lot smaller. I don't know that they've went through kind of massive road expansions like we've had here in the United States, or things like man-made lakes and interstate systems. Like there was a bunch of examples I pulled specifically for Georgia, and people can look into this all they want, like Lake Lanier, the creation of Lake Lanier, where historically a black town of Oscarville were just completely displaced and submerged, right? Based on eminent domain, which is kind of what's happening in the story. You also have the Atlanta interstate construction around the same time between the 50s and 60s, which displaced thousands of residents, disproportionately impacting like black neighborhoods such as Sweet Auburn. The 1980s freeing the freeway program, a massive expansion effort in the 1980s that widened our downtown connector from 6 to as many as 14 lanes. Once again, kind of encroached on the surrounding neighborhoods. So when you kind of have seen this happen, like specifically in Georgia, and you've heard about this your entire life, I think the book maybe hits harder, and it kind of makes Barton Dawes seem more reasonable as a main character.
Right. I mean, obviously, this story is through the lens of Bart Dawes, the main character, but it's, you sort of feel his bitterness about this whole situation, and you kind of go into his I don't want to say you get in his head, but you do, but you understand why he's so bitter about this, situation.
Yeah. And so Bart Dawes, he's very much written to not be likable, right? He's very withdrawn. He's bitter about change, very rigid in the way he thinks. He's divorced partially because of the way he thinks and the way he hates change and everything that's going on. And he's kind of recently bereaved in a way that the book barely talks about, which is he loses a child. And so a lot of this is grief. And the story could almost be summed up as a tale about grief if you wanted to go down that road. But it's not like super dramatic. There's no big explosion. There is times where he's talking almost with 3 characters at once, and one is his dead child by their middle name, and then another character which is his middle name, in which there's some weird conversations that kind of happen. But that's kind of not the key to Bart. It's like nothing in his life stopped when things started falling apart. It's just the highway project becomes the only thing that reacts to him, or he reacts to. It's kind of like the only force pushing back on him. It's like I said, this is very much a weird story for Stephen King / Bach. Even for Bachman, it's kind of weird because it is just so set in real life versus,
you say there's no explosion, but I mean the ending. There is an explosion.
we haven't gotten there yet.
So I kind of ruined it. But
yeah. We haven't gotten there. But explosions being more like.
I understood. Yeah,
his rage filled as he is. He's not. It's not like he's not rambling 90% of the time, right? Like it's
not Michael Douglas and Falling Down,
right? Yes, very much so. That is a great comparison. Our main antagonist here is the system, right? There's no villain in Roadwork. There's no one that's here to take out Dawes other than the highway itself. There's no mastermind or conspiracy or single person to blame. It's just everyone, engineers, clerks, inspectors, supervisors, all people just doing their job, all treating Bart kind of like an inconvenience. And I think that's kind of one of the coolest ideas about this book is that, that it's nothing is happening to him in malice. It's just, this is just something that happens.
Right.
Timelines and expansion.
Progress. And you know that it makes me think of the saying that it's like, it's not the smartest, it's not the strongest that survive, it's the most adaptable.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, unlike, King's more famous work, Roadwork isn't building towards any kind of revelation or huge transformation of the character. There's no clarity given to Bart. Like, he doesn't learn anything throughout it. He doesn't grow because he's kind of against change in general at this point. So it becomes more like very narrow in the way it's written, in kind of a way that makes you feel a little uncomfortable. Because as he's going through this and fighting something that's inevitable,
Right.
the world kind of is just responding to him with this just indifference, just annoyance, and it's like Bart takes the route that Bart ends up taking towards the end of this book, and as we get more into the story, it's just like doesn't really feel like a decision as much as it's just he couldn't stop the inertia. Like he couldn't change direction of who he is as a person.
Well, it's sort of like the way you feel as a, let's say for example, as a citizen in a community or a citizen in a country, when there's things happening, it's like something that's way out of your control, and like there's no stopping this thing. But this character of Bart is really doing everything in his power throughout this story. He fully believes that he's going to be that guy that's just going to find a way. They're going to have to build this road around his house.
He is house.
Not. Yeah, he's not going to let them, and that would have been an interesting ending to the story too, if the system relented to him. But that's obviously that wouldn't make for a very realistic conclusion.
I think I think that's part of the reason why some people just dislike the story, because there's no real character growth of Bart. It kind of makes you. It's like the entire story is telling you not to really agree with Bart, but you're just kind of asked to understand like why he is
it feels like obviously it was written, very young Stephen King, and just knowing a little bit about Stephen King's younger life when he was struggling to make it as an author, and how desperate the times were for he and his wife, where they sometimes didn't have enough money to keep the phone on, and so that sort of like, that this isn't the way it's supposed to be, that sort of like I'm being failed, by society sort of thing. And I feel like that's where this is coming from, this story.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like as we get into the story here, it's pretty much the walkthrough of this is I was able to sum this up in a few, I think, paragraphs of what the story is about, which is Bart. He's spending the entire opening of this book just like kind of measuring everything around him, keeping track of what's going on with the city, what they're doing. He's got very small routines that he does now that he is single, hanging out in the garage, thinking about what life used to be like before the television. Before he put the television, which is a great sequence in the book itself. It talks about him negotiating with the city for a higher price on his house, even though he doesn't want to leave. Meeting engineers very politely, just very procedural type day-to-day life. Contact banks, lawyers, anyone who can kind of delay the project, and everyone responds with like the same calm inevitability of like, hey, this is going to happen, brother.
Right.
So the entire story is happening with these deadlines, blueprints, forms, letters. And then as the week passes, we start getting into this pressure cooker. And that's kind of what there's an uncomfortableness to the story, because that like you just have a feeling, even knowing this is a Stephen King book, something crazy could happen the first time you read it. And I think this is one that definitely deserves a couple of reads because it's actually, I think this would be better if it didn't have Stephen King or Bachman's name attached to it. I think it would be loved a little more.
I imagine in its time prior to, Bachman being discovered to be Stephen King, it had its life apart from King, where people found it and enjoyed it and didn't realize that it was Stephen King writing it.
Right. So then like, yeah. And it's crazy because you can't go back to that time and see how people, looked at this as just a Bachman thing as Bachman being a separate person than Stephen King. You know what I mean? So when I think of it, it's like I wonder if if this was written by someone else, what the feeling would be on it.
All of these, if you read the Bachman books separately or the collection of 4 stories that includes Roadwork, there's an intro called "The Importance of Being Bachman" that Stephen King writes. That's sort of a prelude to these stories and sort of like his addressing the public and not apologizing, but sort of like coming to terms with the fact that Bachman is no more, was a part of who he was, but also in a way was a separate person,
Yeah.
and that was good for him. It was allowed him room to like sort of do something besides what he does, literarily speaking, I guess.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know that he's said specifically about Roadwork that he wrote this after the passing of his mother, and that's kind of the bleakness around it and the sense of grief as far as the loss of Bart's child, kind of in relation to the death of his mother. And there's a lot of people that really dig into that aspect of it, where I think the book itself, if you just look at its surface level, it's more about just overall change, and the refusal to change and what that change might mean for better or worse. But as we get more into the story, the weeks pass, Bart begins to prepare, and we're like, prepare for what? He starts gathering different sorts of tools and explosives and starts planning, and his anger is it's there, it's in the subtext, but it's not, like I said, once again, he's not raging or anything as he talks throughout this thing, or as you hear his inner monologue. It's kind of just this quiet horror of waiting to see what happens, what paperwork he gets, and where he goes from there. And there's neighbors, like there's no big cast of characters in this. There are some neighbors and kind of occasional onlookers of his interactions. But there's, it's just mostly him watching surveyors, noting demolition equipment, and every meeting he has, every procedure is another reminder that the world moves further, whether he's going to participate in it or not. Which kind of gets us to the story escalates, to the point where he starts sabotaging equipment quietly and anticipating what their schedules are and beginning to test the boundaries of what he can get away with. And then the tension continues to grow because he's starting to piss these people off. Right. Until we get to the big explosions, as you mentioned. And I don't want to give away everything because this is one that I know a lot of people haven't read. So that kind of takes us into the end and what it is. What I would say is, if you've ever seen the movie Vanishing Point, he kind of goes out like Kowalski in Vanishing Point. That was a comparison that I made, driving head first against change into the machinery, so to speak. And any thoughts about the story itself? I'm going to pull up some quotes by old Barton Dawes because I think that's some of the most fun. It's his quotes throughout.
Yeah. I really like this story. I like all the Bachman books. Obviously, we got, our program is called Bachman's Basement, but this one, just like I always really liked this one. It never stood out to me, but it always kind of lingered with me. So like I feel like it's one that's just worth a read, worth a listen. It's great in its own way, and it stands apart from anything else I think King has written, where there's just a different sort of set of circumstances and a different mindset happening with the character, which makes it compelling. It may not be for you, but it is a very interesting story. I think it could very easily be made into a movie or a television show.
I think it would actually do really well as like a mini series. I think you could probably get across some of the things in the book a little better. there is one quote on that Bart has, and he's talking about life and society in general, and it kind of sums up the entire book, which is, he says, the machines move forward indifferent. They grind through fences and trees like they don't even see the lives inside. And yet they say it's necessary, and we're supposed to bow. There's no monsters here, no ghost or demon, the horror slower, quieter, sharper, the endless forms, the polite faces of those who decide the future without seeing the cost. Which I think is really how you're supposed to feel about Bart's character, even though he doesn't always come across like that. But the explanation of that, I think, kind of sums up to me, what the book is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. So, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of input on this without sort of ruining the ending of the story. So, I think we're gonna not ruin the end of the story on this one.
Right. And I mean, that kind of takes us to the ending, which is, it's not shocking. It's just very final. There's no victory. There's no interruptions. There's no meaningful consequences for the system itself. The road gets built. How we get there is the part that we don't want to spoil. But yeah, that's the kind of the real horror is, regardless of what happens at the end, the system moves forward. The road gets built. That's the scary part, right? The change can still swallow you whole, regardless of how hard you fight against it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's the unfortunate nature of progress and being a part of society, or being in a city, is that when decisions get made, sometimes the little man gets left out.
Yeah, for sure. So that takes us to the end of the episode. This is a shorter one this week. Do you have a Bachman score for Roadwork?
I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10.
And I'm right there with you. I think I like it a lot more than a lot of other people. I don't know if it's just because of hearing all of those stories of change and the ghost stories of Lake Lanier and all the houses that they poured over to build that lake to some extent.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why it holds up for me a little better than maybe some other people. I would say if you haven't read this one in a long time, it's worth a reread and pay attention to a lot of Bart's quotes, because that's kind of the more meat. If you're going to get anything out of that character as far as liking him, it really comes through kind of his in-head narration and the quotes that they give him. Him watching and making fun of TV is pretty great. You want to go ahead and give out your socials where people can reach you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook at Christopher Clawson, and on Instagram, Chris_Clawson 1982.
And for me, it's Christopher.R.Patton on both Facebook and Instagram. Check out www.boinkstudios.com, where you can find all the Boink Studios content. Listen to all the great stuff that's on there: wrestling, movie reviews, album reviews, our show, obviously, the Patton Report if you like video games and such, race, sports, and slams if you like sports. Tons of stuff. I've been on a bunch of shows, so check those out. And that's going to do it for us this week. Roadwork is one of the few Bachman books that don't disguise its anger. There's no spectacle to soften it, no genre hook to make it grow down easy. Just a man standing still while the world explains why that isn't allowed. Down here in the basement, we've talked about monsters, disasters, curses, and cosmic cruelty. But this story cuts differently because there's nothing unnatural about it. No rules are broken. No laws of reality bend. Everything works exactly the way it's supposed to. Bachman understood something that still holds. When people lose everything quietly, the damage doesn't disappear. It just goes unnoticed till it doesn't. The road moves forward, the paperwork closes, and somewhere behind it all, a life gets paved over and forgotten. That's Roadwork.